The divisive voice to Parliament was strongly rejected by Australians, but several state Labor governments have failed to recognise the will of the Australian people. And it seems many, if not most, Indigenous Australians reject this racial division too, after more than 90% of eligible Indigenous South Australian voters declined to cast their vote in the state's first voice election. The apathy to the race politics employed by the leftist elite could not be more clear. We saw similar disinterest in Victoria with the elections for the First Peoples Assembly. Joining me now is Indigenous Forum Director at the Centre of Independent Studies, Warren Mundine. Warren, are you surprised by the lack of turnout in Victoria and now South Australia? South Australia, they only had less than 10%, less than 3,000 votes cast.
Well, it's similar to organisations that have been set up over the years. ADSIC had never got a majority of Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders to vote and support it. They were all in the, double digits, low 10%, 15% levels. Then you have the New South Wales Land Council elections, they're in similar numbers as well. Then you got Victoria, 2 elections in Victoria still haven't got over 7% of people voting for it. And now South Australia with 10%. We did some work on the Northern Territory polling booths, which had a majority of Aboriginals in them, and you're lucky to get 25, probably 18 to 25 to 40% at the most who voted in the last referendum. So Aboriginals have rejected it by walking away from these things. I don't know why, the left has got this crazy idea that these bodies represent Aboriginal people. No. Aboriginal people want to get their people to be able to run and be elected to Parliament like every other Australian and be part of the Australian mix. They don't want to be separated with these governance, other governance people. We got people who got 6 votes and 40 votes. There's one bloke who got on the ADSIC on 36 votes on a national vote, and they're supposed to be walking around saying we represent Aboriginal people. No, you don't. National Party, Liberal Party and Labor Party people get more votes for them from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders than his so-called Aboriginal representatives.
Well, you're 100% right there. It's very hard to make the case that there's any sort of mandate here. We've got 12 candidates who got elected with under 20 votes each, and one of them had 6 votes. So if you can get elected with 6 votes, really, that's not any sort of representation. We've also found out these yes-aligned campaign groups, how much they spent on trying to push the voice through. All the usual suspects, millions spent by big banks, supermarkets, mining giants, all sorts of lefty philanthropic elites, and they failed, Warren. The No campaign had a fraction of the funding of the Yes campaign, and yet it still managed to win in every state. And yet we see this ideological push continue. It seems there's been no acknowledgement of the referendum result we've just had.
Well, in not only every state, but also in the Northern Territories we won. And then the only place where they got a vote was the ACT, and which, if you think there's a Canberra bubble, that sort of proves it. Look, these people are totally out of touch with the Australian people. They have no clue what the Australian people want, and they're trying to ram down our throats what Aboriginal people throats and down the wider Australian community throats what they see is best for us. We saw it this year with Woolworths, with the Australia Day. People know that I was a bloke who wanted to move the date so we could all celebrate. But I've come to the conclusion now, even if we move the date, these blokes don't want to celebrate. They just hate Australia. And they're just trying to pull this country apart and divide it. And now we're seeing it through these, these state-based referendum. All this money they're spending, we could have had, more police, more education, and which could have stopped this crime rate, which is rampaging across Australia at the moment.
Well, it must break your heart to see what's happening in Alice Springs and elsewhere. The footage out of there is shocking. You can't believe that is Australia. Some of the violence is just extreme, and you feel so desperately sad for the kids who are growing up in that environment.
Look, I'm really sad for the kids. My heart isn't broken in regard to the politicians. We got to start getting rid of politicians who run down this line. Oh, we spend more money, things will get better. Or if we had a voice, things will get better. Well, guess what? They're getting worse, and they're getting worse by the day. And now it's about time these blokes woke up and these women woke up to themselves and actually started doing the real things that need to be done, which is about all the money that's been spent. We need a proper performance review and audit. So if they get X dollars for Y, that Y is actually done. Kids are getting to school. States and territory governments have been getting away with this for years and getting money, and Aboriginal kids at 25%, 30% attending school. And then how are they going to get a job? How are they going to build a future for themselves? And we have to get the adults in to work and start building businesses and things that are happening, and make the community safe. Who's going to invest in a community where you're going to get a brick thrown through your shop window every day? Come on. Let these politicians stop mucking around and talking crap. I say to Chris Mims, you're in discussion about a voice in New South Wales. Stop it. And I say to Mark Speakman, the leader of the opposition, stop it and actually start focusing on the real stuff that needs to be done.
Well, I hope they're both listening to you, Warren Mundine. Thank you so much for your time this evening.